And thank you to all three speakers. It was very clear what your rationale for video textbooks was: engagement, relevance, timeliness. One point that I'd like to ask while I scroll through the chat, one of the issues we have in the US regarding textbooks has to do with cost. And I was wondering how your video textbooks match up against either printed textbooks or ebooks in terms of the cost factor for students.
These particular videos that are currently created through MNC Whispering and that are Erasmus Plus supported and funded, there will be a freely available resource to anybody who would like to use those videos. They're available via the website as well as via YouTube and other video channels. And then they're up for taking by colleagues globally.
Excellent, thank you. One other question I see in the chat has to do with translation into other languages.
Yeah, I responded to this in the chat just to pick it up on this. They're currently shooting videos in mother tongues in the different languages that the different participating universities are based in. And we're currently only developing a voice-over in English, because we thought English in the first instance is probably easiest to work with across business schools. But I appreciate in other places it might be useful to have it in another language, say French or Chinese or whatever it might be. So if there is sufficient interest in this, I think this can be discussed internally to see if we have resources to do another kind of voiceover that may fit other business schools and other demands.
And also we should add that actually with our partners, they're actually being produced in their own languages. For example, cases from Belgium are produced in Dutch, similarly cases from Poland in Polish, and cases from Slovenia in Slovenian. So in order to be able to answer your question, we are actually addressing to different languages within Europe, but they will all be translated into English as common language.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for our speakers? We have a couple of minutes. That was the last item in the chat.
I had one. What sorts, besides like multinational business and so on, what other courses have at this point developed video cases?
Organizational behavior. Organizational behavior is very familiar with it. Sociology, they've got their, I think those are the main ones. And other ones, for example, we just, with Brands Whispering, we're trying to start a new series in finance, because we feel that these are actually very, all the topics that are covered in business studies is very easy to adapt to video cases. They're much easier to teach with if there is a sample. If there is example, then students can relate to it much better. And similarly, lecturers can actually give a better lecture if there is something tangible to work on.
Perhaps it's also important to mention that the video cases do not necessarily need to be used fully. So for instance, I'm also developing one with another Belgian company called Kipling, where you have focused, for instance, a little bit on operations, and then subsequently also more on let's say, commerce, on e-commerce, on international sales. So sometimes also the cases can be split in order to cater for different courses rather than domains, let's say.
Excellent. Okay, if our speakers are available to stick around for a few more moments in case someone thinks of another question. If not, questions can always be posted after the fact to the chat, and the recording will be available. So as you're viewing the recording and you think of other things, you can make comments. Thanks once again to Heinrich Voss, Philippe de Beule, and Nuchet Vardar, and excuse me for butchering those names, for a very interesting session, and please enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. I think we're around for another 3 minutes or so until 1/2 whenever we are being kind of kicked out by the system.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
The one question is, where with COVID, we're you know, in September for the first time going, having to teach not face-to-face. Have you got experiences of universities that have already started doing these hybrid courses or doing the courses offline and already using this video material for those courses? Have you experiences already from that?
I think our colleagues in Slovenia and Poland have trialed some of the video cases that have been created. But I think they've done this before COVID-19 happened. So earlier this year, before we kind of went into lockdown. So I'm not sure yet how it would work out in reality once we teach it live. But I think the advantage would still be there, that then students can see a video even if this is remotely.
Yeah, I think
so we may be pioneering, everybody may be pioneering in September.
Yeah.
Just one other question. A lot of us have done a lot of investment with some really great cases that are available on ECCH, you know, I mean, classic ones like, I don't know, Zara, for example. But is there a chance of you guys working with those cases and maybe kind of doing an add-on, working with those original ECCH cases? That would be a lovely fusion, you know.
We haven't thought of that, but that's actually a very good suggestion. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can actually add on to what exists. Yeah, so it's a great suggestion. But so far, I don't think we. Yeah.
I mean, we could share our top cases that we use most for the top programs, and just find out if there's any synergy, because you might be thinking that's the way to go forward. You know, but thank you very much. That was an interesting session worth coming to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
I saw the question in the chat by Beule about using kind of TED Talk systems in choosing languages you would like to hear. I'm afraid at this stage we are not that advanced yet. It's currently very much, it's a one voiceover, which is English at this stage. If you're going into other voiceovers, then we have to see if we go the kind of TED Talk systems, or if it would be a video with a French, a video with an English voiceover, and then quite static. I don't know the technology behind this and how this might work.
Hmm.